On the radio last week, Tom Snyder and Gore Vidal were arguing the merits of a double anchor TV newscast. Snyder was saying, one anchor is plenty. No, says Vidal. Things zip by so fast on those programs, you need two people. You need one to read a couple of items, then the other one to say, hold it, wait a minute now, go over that again. Here at WCCO Television News, we are exhuming the long dead More on Sunday title to take care of that problem. Beginning in the fall, each Sunday morning at 9:30, following Charles Kuralt, we will offer a slower look back at the news of the past week. We'll fill in some of the crevices that our haste left open and reveal whatever new dimension might have developed since that story first broke. Let's step back now. If this were Sunday morning following last week, we'd look back on several rather disquieting items. On Friday, 7 people perished in a devastating fire that gutted the Wendigo Lodge and the Gunflint Trail near Grand Marais.
The fire at the Wendigo Lodge has hit this close-knit resort community very hard. The Eckroots were very popular with other resort owners, and for years their lodge has been the center of the social activities here.
Authorities say it'll be quite some time before they can positively identify all of the bodies charred beyond recognition or discover a cause. 3 of last week's top stories happened in Wisconsin. On Tuesday, 3 construction workers were killed north of Brule when they tried to move a load of dynamite. They were working to lay a gas pipeline. 1 man remains in critical condition. Just one day earlier, we covered a train derailment across the river from Winona near Fountain City, Wisconsin. 29 cars of a freight train plummeted into the Mississippi after running over a washed-out portion of track. They spilled loads of lumber and butter. 1 trainman was injured, not seriously. But we took this story one step further, asking questions on just about everybody's mind, questions about how much worse this might have been.
This particular train route is a heavily traveled one. 20 to 30 trains a day, traveling up to 70 miles per hour past this route. There are no restrictions as to what a train can carry. We asked the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, what if the derailed cars had been carrying a dangerous gas like chlorine?
The chlorine gas will dissipate itself with the wind. Basically, you have to get out of there right away.
In Balsam Lake, Wisconsin, a judge ruled that 16-year-old Bruce Bernizer must stand trial as an adult. The teenager is charged with murdering and mutilating the bodies of his father's longtime girlfriend, and their 3 young daughters. And in St. Cloud, a suspect led officers to the body of 23-year-old Melissa Johnson, missing since Monday night when she went out to walk the dog. Melissa Johnson would have graduated from St. Cloud State today. The frightening story of Melissa Johnson came only a short time after the abduction, the rape, and the murder of a 19-year-old Grand Rapids woman, Karen Strufert. We are in the throes of an increasingly savage society. Women must think twice before leaving home, before going out alone, even in rural areas. Teenagers are charged with crimes that are unthinkable, even for hardened adult criminals. Law enforcement people, legislators, educators seem just as bewildered as any of us. We can only hope that their efforts to fight this insanity will become as newsworthy as the crimes themselves. On one segment of More on Sunday, we will deal with a story that happened the week before in depth. We will offer an overview of what was probably a very complex dilemma, such as the case of the 2 Twin Cities doctors found to have the AIDS virus. One took precautions, admitted as such to his patients, and the other did not. We will talk on Sunday with the reporter who covered the story all week. We'll talk with experts in the field, and in this particular case, on this Sunday, we will talk with our own Dr. Michael Breen. You'll recall, immediately after it was revealed, Michael, tempers were frayed. Doctors were asked to take, all doctors must be tested for AIDS. And the doctor said, all right, then all patients would be tested for AIDS. And there was a lot of panic there. What are the odds of a doctor infecting a patient with AIDS?
odds, Dave, are almost infinitesimal. I mean, if you're operated on by a surgeon who has the AIDS virus, your odds of getting that same illness are about 1 in 45,000. Now, in the case of Dr. Benson, he wasn't a surgeon. Most of his procedures were just touching people, examining them. They were not invasive in any way. The odds there are minuscule.
If you're a patient and you suspect, for whatever reason, I don't know, but if you are of that nature and you suspect your doctor might have AIDS, you ask him or her?
Sure, you can ask him, but the real question, I think, is are you going to trust the answer that you get? I mean, every physician out there is realistic. Whether he or she is capable of spreading the illness is really secondary. When you tell your patients that you are infected with HIV, you are effectively ending your career. I mean, 90% of the polls, 90% of patients who are interviewed say that if their physician is infected with HIV, they're not going back, even if you tell them the statistics, as low as they are.
Can the medical community handle this? Do you suspect, is it possible, God forbid, that the government might get into this?
Are you kidding? What I think is going to happen, and it's pretty well informed based upon what I've read, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, has just said that all physicians who do invasive procedures should be getting a regular AIDS test. Now, it's only a matter of time before malpractice insurance requires that physicians, especially surgeons, get an HIV test. And when that happens, this will no longer be a voluntary test. This will be a mandatory test, and it's going to be done for liability reasons.
Is it going to come to that?
Oh, I see it almost certainly. But you have to look at the other side of the coin. You know, a physician has 100 times the chance of being infected by a patient than a patient does by a physician. So physicians are saying, look, if we're going to be tested every 6 months or every year, what have you, we want our patients tested as well. We want to protect ourselves. And if I can philosophize just a little, you know, the odds of being infected are very, very small, Dave, but the real danger, perhaps, to this whole incident is an undermining of the doctor-patient relationship, because you're going to have a tension now between patients and physicians. Does my doctor have AIDS? Does this patient have AIDS? If I ask my doctor, am I going to be alienating my doctor? And as if things weren't becoming more and more distant enough between doctors and patients, now you have one further element that's going to make things tougher.
Michael, thank you very much.
Dave, thanks for having me.
On occasion, during the week, we'll get out into the community to check out something that's probably been gnawing away at us for quite some time, such as the franchising of America, a monstrous concept that's been trampling over and burying individual enterprise. We found an example of its potential in Edina. There are nearly as many jokes about Edina as there are about Fridley. But even Edina's detractors will admit that one of the enviable qualities of this nearly lily-white Puritan Republican suburb is its community entrepreneurism. Only a few national chains have dared to break into the 50th in France a totally Edina claque until wham! Walgreens appears 42 years after Roy Clancy put his name on a drugstore that became synonymous with Edina.
Come down here, play video games downstairs. Always a place to go on a warm summer day. You know, ride down with friends on our bikes and then stop at Clancy's and then run around 50th for a while and then go home.
The very presence of this soda fountain is testimony to Clancy's public spirit. Because of costly renovations needed a few years ago, management planned to close down the lunch counter.
I must have 2,000 signatures or plead that they've been eating here for 30 years. You can't close that down. And we figured that was good enough for us, so we have maintained keeping it open.
You want some dressing with that?
Clancy still loses money on the lunch counter. Everyone we spoke to in Clancy's swore loyalty.
My daily luncheon spot when I was working up here at the corner of 50th and France. I know all the people that are longtime employees here. They know me by name. The pharmacist one time came out of his bed at midnight and filled a prescription for us when our boy had a bad ear infection.
Employees like Virginia Murray, who's worked here 30 years, appreciate Clancy's family atmosphere.
Get that other one.
You like that other one?
I came to work here when my children were young. I was close to home. If I needed to go home, I could go. And somebody would say, do you have a car? No. Here's my keys, go.
But Walgreens is coming to open in July. It's the nation's #1 drugstore chain in sales, with stores in 29 states, 10 new locations in the Twin Cities this year alone.
I think everyone's concerned about it. I don't know that we worry about it. We feel that the clientele has been very loyal and expect to render that same service.
Suffice it to say that Clancy's has been more than a drugstore. It's been what small groceries, family-owned service stations, and hardware stores have been to hundreds of communities. Almost a cathedral of loving care to generations of customers. One can only hope that this community can fend off, or at least live in peace, with another one of the remote corporate conglomerates that is hastening the franchising of America. It is my fond and selfish hope that this More on Sunday program will give us access to people who might not otherwise give us the time of day. For instance, I would like to talk with Tom Kelly and ask why the Twins batters take so many first pitches. The other night against Chicago, 6 of the first 9 Twin hitters let that first pitch go by. Of the 3 who did swing at the first pitch, 2 got hits. I would like to ask Garland Wright